In the mountains of Sinaloa, a young Joaquín Guzmán learned that growing up poor meant risking everything, sometimes for a single meal. But that desperation didn't just shape a survivor, it built the blueprint for the world's most powerful drug empire. By the time authorities realized what was happening, El Chapo had already rewritten the rules of organized crime from a dirt village most people couldn't find on a map. How does a penniless farmer outmaneuver governments, rivals, and even his mentors? The answer starts where few bother to look, in the fields that first taught him how to break rules and survive. Joaquín Archibaldo Guzmán Loera was born in 1957 in La Tuna, a remote village tucked deep in the mountains of Badiraguato, Sinaloa. The region's dirt roads and scattered ranches spoke of distance, not just from cities, but from opportunity itself. Life here meant working the land or watching it fail you. Most families survived on subsistence farming, raising corn, beans, and the few livestock that could handle the rocky soil. For many, even that was not enough. By the 1970s, census records counted fewer than 30,000 people in all of Badiraguato, with poverty rates among the highest in Mexico. Schooling rarely lasted beyond a few grades. Guzmán left after third grade, already needed in the fields. His father, a farmer known for growing poppy as well as crops, expected hard work from his children and offered little comfort. From a young age, Guzmán and his siblings hiked the hills to cut opium buds, sometimes for days, just to bring home a few pesos. The mountains were beautiful, but they could be ruthless. In this world, hunger was not a story. It was a daily fact. Each season brought new risks, failed harvests, lost livestock, or the threat of violence from those who wanted a cut of the meager profits. For a boy like Guzmán, survival meant learning to take chances, trust his own wits, and never count on help from outside. These were lessons that would shape every decision he made from then on. By his early teens, Guzmán was already searching for ways to escape the dead-end cycle of rural poverty. He started small, planting a few rows of marijuana on borrowed land, learning how to care for the plants and hide them from local authorities. The profits, though meager at first, offered more than farming beans or corn ever could. Stories circulated of teenagers acting as couriers, hauling bundles of marijuana or opium paste down mountain trails for older growers. Guzmán took on these risky jobs, moving product between villages and collecting cash payments. Each successful delivery built his reputation for reliability and nerve. He watched how the local trade worked, who paid, who cheated, who disappeared. By 16, he was managing his own small crew, organizing harvests and negotiating deals with buyers from outside Badiraguato. The work brought steady money, but also new dangers. Police raids, rival growers, and unpredictable buyers meant every transaction carried a threat. Yet Guzmán kept expanding, reinvesting his earnings into more land and better seeds. He paid off local officials when needed, learning early that a few pesos in the right hands could keep trouble away. As his profits grew, so did his ambition. No longer just a farmhand, Guzmán was becoming a player in the region's underground economy, setting the stage for the connections and skills that would soon draw the attention of major traffickers. Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo ran the Guadalajara cartel with the discipline of a corporate boss and the reach of a political kingmaker. When Guzmán caught his attention in the early 1980s, it was not just for his nerve or work ethic. It was his ability to solve problems others avoided. Gallardo brought him into a world where moving product meant more than just crossing mountains. It meant understanding the plaza system, a network of territories where every route, every checkpoint, and every official had a price. Under Gallardo's watch, Guzmán learned how to negotiate access to border crossings, how to arrange shipments with Colombian suppliers, and how to keep police and soldiers on the payroll. Court dockets from Gallardo's U.S. trial named Sinaloa as his training ground, with Guzmán learning the logistics of large-scale smuggling and the value of loyalty bought with cash. Gallardo's connections opened doors to Mexico City, Tijuana, and even Miami, introducing Guzmán to a broader web of traffickers and corrupt officials. He studied how Gallardo managed alliances and handled betrayals, watching as the Plaza model kept violence in check and profits high. These lessons in organization, secrecy, and delegation would become the backbone of Guzmán's own operation. By the late 1980s, Guzmán had moved from apprentice to trusted lieutenant, equipped with the contacts and skills to control his own corridor when the old cartel began to fracture. Operation Leyenda shattered the old order. With Miguel Ángel Felix Gallardo behind bars in April 1989, the Guadalajara cartel splintered overnight. Suddenly, Mexico's drug corridors, routes worth millions, were up for grabs. In Sinaloa, Guzmán saw a rare opening. While others hesitated, he moved fast, pressing his advantage in the confusion. Internal memos from Operation Leyenda detail how traffickers scrambled to secure territory, forging new alliances or settling old scores. Guzmán worked the phones and back channels, reaching out to trusted lieutenants and former rivals alike. He wasn't the only one. The Arellano Felix brothers staked their claim to Tijuana, Amado Carrillo Fuentes took Juarez, but Guzmán focused on the Pacific corridor. The Sinaloa route offered direct access to the U.S. border and control over the region's poppy and marijuana fields. His reputation for reliability, honed under Gallardo, now gave him the leverage to negotiate with Colombian suppliers and corrupt officials. Within months, Guzmán and his closest allies, including Ismael El Mayo Zambada and Juan José El Azul Esparragoza, locked down the Sinaloa corridor. They set up informal agreements to avoid open war, but everyone knew these deals could collapse at any moment. The old cartel's Plaza system had vanished. In its place, Guzmán began shaping his own organization, one built on speed, adaptability, and ruthless calculation. The scramble for territory was over. Sinaloa belonged to El Chapo. Guzmán's vision for the Sinaloa cartel went far beyond controlling a single territory. He and Ismael El Mayo Zambada began building an organization that managed every step of the drug business, from the mountain fields to the streets of American cities. Instead of acting as middlemen, they created a tightly controlled supply chain. Farmers in Sinaloa grew poppy and marijuana under cartel contracts, with prices and quotas set by cartel managers. Processing labs, often hidden in remote ranches, turned raw crops into heroin and methamphetamine. Trusted lieutenants oversaw each phase, reporting directly to Guzmán or Zambada. Shipments moved through a network of plazas, key trafficking corridors, where local bosses collected fees and enforced discipline. Revenue flowed upward, with plaza chiefs remitting a share of profits to central leadership. This system allowed the cartel to fix prices, guarantee supply, and punish anyone who tried to cheat or steal. Zambada, known for his discretion and business sense, handled logistics and negotiations, building relationships with Colombian suppliers and corrupt officials alike. Leadership appointments were deliberate. Only those with proven loyalty and operational skill advanced. The result was an organization that ran more like a multinational corporation than a criminal gang, with clear roles, reliable cash flow, and resources ready for the next leap in engineering or bribery. The Sinaloa cartel's scale and discipline set it apart, laying the groundwork for the innovations and expansion that would soon follow. Smuggling across the border between the U.S. and Mexico had always meant risk, armed convoys, hidden compartments, and a constant cat-and-mouse game with authorities. But Guzmán saw a different path beneath their feet. In the early 1990s, his crews began digging under the border, carving out tunnels that grew more advanced with each attempt. Early passages were simple, crude shafts propped up with lumber, barely wide enough for a man to crawl through. Soon, though, the organization poured resources into engineering. By the late 1990s, DEA reports documented tunnels stretching hundreds of meters, reinforced with concrete, equipped with electric lighting, and fitted with rails to move heavy loads. Ventilation systems pumped fresh air through the underground corridors, allowing workers and couriers to operate for hours at a time. Some tunnels used GPS coordinates for precise exits on the U.S. side, often emerging in the floors of warehouses or private homes. These passages moved tons of cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine under the noses of Border Patrol. Each new discovery forced U.S. agents to rethink their strategies, while the Sinaloa cartel simply started another shaft further down the line. The tunnel revolution was more than a clever trick. It was a logistical leap that let Guzmán move product faster, safer, and in volumes no competitor could match. For law enforcement, every sealed tunnel was a sign that the next would only be deeper, longer, and harder to find. Power in Sinaloa did not rest on violence alone. Guzmán understood early that lasting control depended on buying protection at every level. As profits soared, the cartel's books began to look more like those of a major corporation than a street gang. Payroll-style bribes flowed monthly to local police chiefs, federal agents, customs inspectors, and even politicians in Culiacan. Asset declarations for some officials showed spikes that could not be explained by their government salaries. Shell companies, often registered in relatives' names, moved cash through real estate and construction contracts, making the true source of funds almost invisible. Witnesses later testified in a United States court that suitcases of cash, sometimes as much as $1 million at a time, were delivered to secure loyalty or silence. In some towns, entire police departments received regular payments, with officers expected to tip off the cartel about planned raids or rival activity. This system of bribery was not just a safety net. It became the shield that allowed Guzmán's network to operate in broad daylight, expand into new territories, and silence those who might interfere. As the money moved, so did the boundaries of what was possible, turning law enforcement from an obstacle into a resource. Tijuana and Juarez became battlegrounds as rival bosses fought to control the border's most lucrative crossings. The Arellano Felix brothers in Tijuana and Amado Carrillo Fuentes in Juarez refused to yield ground to Guzmán's expanding Sinaloa cartel. Gunmen clashed in broad daylight at intersections, outside nightclubs, even in church parking lots. In 1992, a shootout at Guadalajara's airport left Cardinal Juan Jesus Posadas Ocampo dead, caught in the crossfire of a failed assassination attempt targeting the Arellano Felix brothers. That killing shocked the country, but it did not slow the violence. Homicide rates in border cities spiked, as each side sent messages with bodies left on public display. Cartel hitmen kidnapped rivals, targeted family members, and used torture to extract confessions or intimidate entire neighborhoods. The Sinaloa cartel's strategy was simple: overwhelm opponents through relentless attacks and public fear. Meanwhile, the Arellano Felix and Carrillo Fuentes factions answered with their own brutality, turning Tijuana and Juarez into war zones where no one felt safe. The bloodshed drew national attention, forcing law enforcement to respond and putting Guzmán in the crosshairs for the first time. Authorities finally caught up with Guzmán in June 1993, arresting him at a hotel in Guadalajara. Mexican and Guatemalan police, acting on a tip, brought him in without a fight. He was sentenced to 20 years inside Puente Grande, a maximum security prison near Guadalajara. On paper, the facility was built to hold the country's most dangerous criminals. In reality, Guzmán turned it into his own headquarters. Court dockets and later testimony revealed he bribed guards, Warden Damaso Lopez Nunez, and even kitchen staff, paying out hundreds of thousands of dollars each month. Cell blocks became meeting rooms, and guards delivered everything from cell phones to gourmet meals. For years, authorities claimed he was under tight control. But on January 19, 2001, Guzmán vanished. Investigators found he had slipped out hidden in a laundry cart, pushed by a trusted guard through a series of security doors and out a service exit. 14 prison staff were later charged with collusion. The escape stunned Mexico, exposing just how easily cash could open any door and launching Guzmán into a new era as both fugitive and living legend. By the early 2000s, Guzmán's operation no longer fit within Mexico's borders. Sinaloa's reach extended into Europe, where Spanish police seized 4 tons of cocaine in Vigo, linking the bust to a cartel cell known as Los Ingleses. Australian authorities traced a 1.2-ton cocaine shipment back to his network, while DEA reports documented Sinaloa's drugs moving through Hong Kong and Jakarta. The cartel's footprint spanned continents, with shipments routed through Africa and Asia, and profits laundered through shell companies flagged in the Panama Papers. This global expansion brought more than money, it brought fame. In 2009, Forbes placed Guzmán among the world's richest men, estimating his fortune at over $1 billion. Songs called Narco Corridos turned his escapes and exploits into legend, painting him as a modern-day Robin Hood. Ballads by Los Tucanes de Tijuana echoed through radios and parties, celebrating the man who outsmarted the law and helped his hometown. For some, he became a folk hero. For others, he became the most wanted criminal on earth. The world watched, and the myth only grew. On July 11, 2015, inside Mexico's highest security prison, Guzmán stepped into the shower of his cell and vanished. Beneath the concrete, a mile-long tunnel waited. It was a feat of underground engineering that defied belief even among seasoned investigators. The passage measured about 5.5 feet high and nearly 2 feet wide, just enough for a man to crouch and move quickly. Electric lights lined the walls, and air was pumped in by a custom ventilation system. At the heart of the tunnel, a small motorcycle mounted on rails served as a shuttle, speeding Guzmán through the darkness. The tunnel's entrance opened precisely beneath the only blind spot in his cell, a detail confirmed by forensic reports from the Altiplano prison. Workers had hauled out hundreds of tons of earth, all without drawing attention from guards or sensors. The exit surfaced in a half-built house nearly a mile away, outside the prison fence. With this escape, Guzmán's organization showed not just wealth or nerve, but an ability to coordinate logistics and engineering on a scale that rivaled major construction firms. For authorities, the message was clear. No wall, no lock, and no guard could match the reach of his network. On January 8, 2016, Mexican Marines and federal police surrounded a safe house in Los Mochis, Sinaloa. Their target was Joaquín Guzmán, tracked for weeks through intercepted phone calls and encrypted messaging. The operation, codenamed Black Swan, unfolded before dawn. Inside, Guzmán tried to escape through a tunnel, but the exit was blocked. He and his lieutenant surfaced on a nearby street and hijacked a car, but were intercepted minutes later by a highway patrol. After nearly 3 decades on the run, the world's most wanted trafficker was in custody. Yet the Sinaloa cartel did not collapse. Leadership shifted to Ismael Zambada and Guzmán's sons, who adapted quickly, decentralizing command and moving funds through cryptocurrency and offshore accounts. UNODC reports show Sinaloa's shipments continue to reach the US, Europe, and Asia. Despite high-profile arrests, the cartel's network endured, its violence and influence still shaping lives from Culiacan to Chicago. For every legend built around Guzmán, the reality remains: the machine he helped create outlasted the man. Today, the Sinaloa cartel still moves billions despite El Chapo's imprisonment. As global drug demand grows and corruption endures, entire systems, not just individuals, fuel the trade. The machinery he built keeps running, reshaping lives on both sides of every border. The question now is not who leads, but whether anyone can stop the empire he left behind. Share your thoughts below.